Welcome back to another episode of Growing with My Fellow Growers. I'm your host, as always, Jack Greenstock, joined by a shorter panel than typical weeks, but we have a few other members that will be joining us soon. But I'll start like I do most weeks by passing it off first to Spartan Grown. Cheers, Spartan.
What's up, everybody? I'm Spartan Grown. You can find me on Instagram under Spartan Grown, all one word, no spaces. Or if you don't do the social media, you can shoot me an email at spartangrown@gmail.com. I grow organically at home and synthetically at work, so I've got my foot in both waters.
We got people showing up as you're giving your introductions. Pass it over next to Aaron the Grower.
What's up? Thanks, Jack. Nice to see everybody on the panel. Good to be back this week. I am Aaron the Grower, ATG Acres on Instagram and YouTube and .com. Good to be here.
Happy to have you back. Next up, Matthew Gates.
Hey everyone, this is Matthew Gates. I am an integrated pest management specialist, and I'm always happy to come on and talk about things related to that, or actually totally other unrelated things. And you can find my pest-related information on my YouTube channel, Zenthanol. You can also find my Instagram at SyncAngel and my Twitter at SyncAngel. And in fact, I just got through talking to a PhD who let me know more about microbial interactions, dynamics, and identification in soil. So you can check that out on my Instagram.
Good stuff as always. Next up, we've got Russ Brandon.
Can you guys hear me?
You're a little quiet. Just turn it up or maybe move closer to the mic.
Can you hear me better now?
A little better, but it's still on the quiet end.
All right, I'm going to turn my gain up.
Much better.
Much better.
All right, cool. So if you guys can hear me all right, I'm Brandon Rust. Most of you guys are already familiar. Glad to be here as always. You can find my IG at rust.brandon, and you can find a link to my company, Bokashi Earthworks, and the farm that I co-founded, Black Label Organics.
Welcome back. Always a pleasure to have you. And last but certainly not least, and I think we do have a few others that will be joining a little bit late, the American one. How's it going?
Hello, Jack and panel and everyone in chat. It's good to be here. I hope everyone's having a great weekend. And I'm happy to be here and about to talk some cannabis talk. I'm the American one on YouTube and the American one _with_ Keens on the IG. Most of you know me. If you don't, when you search the American one, a little guy with an American top hat should pop up, and that would be me. So
if you don't know, you should. I'm growing his Amy Aces right now, and it is absolutely looking like some fire. They're super vigorous, growing really healthy. Some of the biggest leaves. I got to post some pictures the other day. Like my hand for reference, I'm about 6 feet tall exactly, and I have a little bit bigger hands than most people my size. And the leaves, even in a tiny little tent, are dwarfing the size of my hand, and just kind of a really thick, fat, leathery leaf on the one pheno, where the other one's more stretchy and a little bit more hybrid looking leaf. But yeah, the American one breeds some fire. He's got that, Ophelia, a few others as well. And so big shout out to you, the American one. Thanks again for the seeds. And I had no one else to pass it over to, so we can go ahead and get started for the week. I hope everybody's doing well. I don't really have a topic for this week, so maybe I'll look over at the chat. And I think I had something in my head, but it left me. So
I got something I want to talk about. I just popped some of Brandon's gear. I dropped that, actually it was Sunday. I dropped the Mac version 2 times the Limarilla. Yeah. So that one's I got, you're muted, Brandon. But I got both, I got 100% germ rate on that. And then I popped some Snow Cane version 2s from 2020 Mendocino. And I got 100% on that too. So I'm stoked for those from new genetics.
The Limelight is Limarilla F2, my breeder cut crossed into Mac V2. And the shit's fucking fire, bro. Like, you're going to be so stoked.
Sweet. Can't wait.
It's fucking super, dude, it's super terpy, super frosty. It's really tasty. The stuff, and you can find like every pheno is going to be almost the same. There's some outliers, but yeah, you're going to like that one, dude.
I got a question from the chat, not to derail that conversation because I think we could definitely get back to that. But Cheddar Bob says, where's a good place to get hand-blown glass online? Somebody I would recommend is ChemDog Glass. I don't know if they sell it online necessarily, but you could follow them online and figure out where to get their stuff or see them in person for their drops. But ChemDog is the guy who actually found ChemDog, Chem91. So that strain that a lot of us love and has been used in many, many breeding projects has a guy behind it, and he's a pretty awesome glass blower, old school deadhead, and just generally badass guy. So I think supporting him is definitely cool, but some of the stuff can get expensive. There's a few other people out there, but I'd love to hear the other panel members' thoughts on glass blowers out there and availability online.
Okay, so if you're in San Diego, Jack, you're probably familiar with them if you've ever been to Ocean Beach Farmers Market, but Glass Distractions. Here's actually one of their pieces right here. So this is one of their, this is like my bubbler, and they do really nice work.
That's sick. I would say if you're looking for online glass, I would just check out Instagram and follow your favorite glass blowers until you find a piece you like, and then send them a message. In terms of online purchasing, that's probably the best way to go, direct purchase.
Yeah, that's true.
I support direct purchase as well.
Yeah,
definitely.
I could never afford it, but direct purchasing from like Skaz Glass, that dude who makes the fucking dragons, that's some badass shit. Brandon just mentioned that glass blower from San Diego. I can't remember the name, but I have one of their Sherlock kind of bubblers right here, as well as a few of their jars and a spoon piece or chillum or two.
Yep. They have like matching sets. You can get like, I have like a nug jar. I've got a saxophone pipe. I've got a Sherlock. I've got a hammer. I've got a regular pipe, a chillum, and it's all that same. So they call this the chaos or whatever. So this is like the chaos design. There's even got like a little Steely in there, a little fucking Grateful Dead Steely. And then they'll have like they'll have like the ocean line that's all like octopuses and tentacles and fish and stuff, you know. And they have everything, pipes, chillum, nug jar, and you can like mix and match sets. And then I even, check this out. I'll be right back. It's sitting right across from me.
Definitely a big fan of glass. I know it's not necessarily growing related, but a lot of us like to consume. And as you save money growing, you can afford some nicer glass sometimes. And this is a beautiful piece Brandon showing off right here.
So I got to send it back because I broke it, and they'll reblow this for me. They'll do it for free. And they're like, yeah, dude, we'll fucking reblow it for you. No problem. But yeah, this was a custom piece. I was like, yo, check it out. I told them I wanted a bong, like the set of pipes that I had and like my nug jar and all that. And they're like, oh yeah, we can do that. No problem.
Can I share? Let me see if I can share screen. Nope, it's disabled.
There's a ton of good glass blowers on IG, dude.
Yeah, I was going to recommend one that we have. It's Glass by Carrie is the Instagram. I was going to show they made a bunch of custom, I call them marbles, but you replace carb caps with them. They just sit on top and they're marbles. And in this marble, if you could look up Baked Pone's Instagram, you can find it. But it says the MBGS for Michigan Bros Grow Show if you're looking straight down on it. But if you turn it from the side, the MBGS turns into like a lotus flower inside. It looks fucking awesome.
I had somebody hit me up, Michael Ray Glass on IG, and he wanted some like seeds, and he gave me 2 dab rigs that probably would have sold for some around like $1,500 at a head shop. And I just gave him a couple packs of seeds for him. So that was kind of cool.
Definitely something I'd rather trade for than purchase in many occasions because the prices can get up there. But I respect artists, and they have to pay their bills and eat and things like that too. And some of them take hours and hours and days, weeks, months to make some of these pieces. I know some of these people bang them out real quick too, but like somebody who's on that end, tag. I know as an American glass maker, thick ass glass is what it stands for. My brother's got one of those, and he's dropped it many times and hasn't broken. So I mean, it's not indestructible, but I've seen there's videos of them like throwing them down concrete staircases and shit and surviving that. So that's a pretty cool thing for if you actually want glass. Some people get the silicone bongs, but I'm just not a fan. I don't like how it feels, even though I don't mind the mouthpiece like Spartan's using right now in his bong. I have one of those in mine, but something about holding like a nice piece of glass and consuming cannabis smoke out of it, I think it rips a little bit smoother, like comes through easier. Maybe it doesn't impact the taste at all either. It just good clean glass is like nothing else.
Coca-Cola is better out of the bottle. I got a theory about glass, man.
I feel like sometimes the metal, it can be a little metallic-y in a can, you know?
Yeah, agreed. Or BPA-ish in plastic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and glass you could clean thoroughly all the way if you really have to, want to, you can. So that's why I love glass.
Fun fact, those metal cans are coated with plastic on the inside.
Yeah, everybody
Well, that's good to
burned.
know.
Everybody who burned their, made their makeshift pipe, pushing holes in there, burned some plastic while they were doing it. Scary to think about.
First time I ever consumed cannabis, unfortunately, was out of a soda can like that or pop can, crushed on the sides. Use a little thumbtack, make some holes through it, and yeah, I don't know. We thought we were clever putting some tape over the mouthpiece so you wouldn't get the flaming bits of debris, and you poke little holes in that. But it acted kind of like a filter. I saw it at a local shop here, and I've seen it online as well. There's a ceramic version of a like soda can that's like crushed up already, and it's got like the little holes in the top, and there's a carb cap on the side.
Yeah, I've seen that.
It's actually, it looks pretty nice. It's like all white ceramic, and then it's got like a gold tab, like where you would open the can.
I was so curious how they made those. Do they just like take a can and dip it, or do they have a mold and they just press that every time? Because it looks like a fucking can, dude, dead on, like a can dipped in white ceramic. That's what it looks like.
I wonder if it's what do they call it? Hydro doping or something. There's a way that you can like, I think they do it for like Cerakote. No, not Cerakote, but like you can like dip like guns or like other things into it, and then you pull it out and there's like a design on it. I think you do that with car parts too sometimes.
I know with
Maybe the
clay,
comments know.
it's like it could be as simple as like a 4-piece slip and score. I'm getting into the weeds here now with the ceramics people out there, but you take 4 pieces of clay that are like a rectangle.
Everybody just froze.
Oh shit! Is it just me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Well, to make the Coke can for anybody out there who wanted to do something like this, self-made, in ceramics, you could get like 4 little rectangles, and you basically serrate the edges. You put a little bit of slip, which is like loose clay, and some water, make them all together, and then you can kind of like crush it into itself once you've sealed it to make it into the shape of the Coke can, and then just cut out a round shape for the mouthpiece, cut out a little piece for the tab. It'd be pretty simple to create, actually. And then glazing it, you could do like Matthew said, you could probably just like put a hook in it, dunk it into a glaze entirely, so it would, when you fire it, gives that appearance of like all the way around it's perfectly coated. But definitely smoking out of a ceramic is a lot safer than plastic and aluminum, so I advocate for that much more so than anybody like myself out there who was probably desperate enough to have to use cannabis that way.
So I was referring to water transfer printing, sometimes called hydro dipping, just for anyone who was curious what I was talking about. I hate it when somebody does that and then like they don't fact check it. Sometimes there's no time, but then it's like, what was that thing? I want to know what that thing is they were talking about. So
a little Easter
hydrographics.
It's nice for anyone listening. They can Google either right now or afterwards if they're listening after the show. So it's
is it just where they put paint on water? Where they put the paint on the water, the different shades of paint, and make a swirl design, and then they dip something into it and pull it out? Is that what
yeah. Basically, yeah. And it can be like like this. I'm looking at like a Wikipedia page about it, and like you got to have like a liquid substrate, but yeah, you basically put the image on top and then you dip it into it and it comes out. It's magic.
One of the high times they're doing that for temporary tattoos. You could get arm sleeves, but you're just dipping your arm through and pulling it out.
I'm a little dubious about that, but at the same time, it's kind of awesome.
I have a question about, we were just talking about using glass, and I'm curious about just consumption methods around the panel. I personally vaporize through a bong. I'd say like 90+% of the cannabis I consume, but I also dab with a little Puffco and roll joints every now and then. And I think everybody has a different thought on what gets you the best flavor, what gets you maybe the most medicated, like strongest effect. Do you guys have any thoughts about just like different ingestion methods and which you prefer and get the most flavor out of?
I prefer joints.
When I have new strains that I'm about to harvest that I never tried before, I always clean a device, thoroughly clean, and get new fresh taste on it. But I do believe, and I've been preached to about a joint, other than vaporizing, like smoking a joint is supposedly cleaner than doing a bong rip. And the theory is, I guess, the filtration through the joint, and it's also it's like vaporizing some of it, and it's not always that hot right out of your mouth. But I don't know. I never did scientific experiments, but I do have some references if anybody wants. And it actually says one of the references is old, and they say up to 25% of the THC is left in the roach of a joint. But that was a really old study, like in the 70s. They used like machines that suck through the joints. They didn't have any. They use machines, but I could pull it up if you guys are interested. I'll put it in the YouTube chat.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was unethical to have human volunteers. They couldn't have people getting high on joints. Heaven forbid, right? They didn't want people sitting back there toking down, having a good old time, seeing what it does to their lungs. It is interesting though when they create like artificial lungs and smoking devices, and I can tell even just through what Spartan's using over there, that mouthpiece, when I use my bong to smoke a bowl versus vaporizing a bowl, I could vaporize 50 bowls before I would have to replace that filter. And it might not even need to be replaced. It's like a faint yellow little amount that's being filtered out. When you combust, there is actually a lot more going on. Like it's just so much, like the carbon, the actual shit that's not filtered out by the water was surprising to me when I got that mouthpiece, because I always thought with a bong, especially like I have a lower water area and then I have the upper water, like a double perk. And even with that, tons of fucking tarry ass resin still gets through into what would be your mouth if you didn't have the filter.
Yeah, I burned through one. I replaced one before the show, and it'll be done by the end of the next show. Like on these back-to-back shows where I'm sitting here smoking for 4 hours. Yeah, it gets toasted quick. But like you said, all that shit is not getting in my lungs, so I'm gonna keep using them.
I'm a big believer, man. I used to cough up like resin and shit because if I didn't clean my bong enough or whatever it is, I don't know, there'd be some resin getting through. And those are a simple way. And the filters are really, really inexpensive. So even if you just have to do a couple a week, it's like a few bucks for, in my opinion, your health. And I think it's a medical plant, and some people would consider your bong or whatever you're using a medical device. I know the Storz and Bickel vaporizer, the Volcano, was actually put through the process in California during Prop 215, the medical days, to be considered a medical device. So like they went through all the processes of actually getting it certified to that level.
That's fucking awesome. I need to get one.
Yes, Blue Cross. I'd like to have a vaporizer for free.
No kidding.
Yeah, give me
Hey,
that.
that'll up their that's one way to get retention. I know that Kaiser is hurting trying to get people. I mean,
I will say,
medical is a joke here.
in the last decade of living here in California, every single time I've had to go to the doctor, which is like I can count on one hand, but like maybe 3 or 4 times that I've gone, I have been honest with them about my cannabis use, and they didn't judge me, treat me differently, or like deny me any other medication, or give me any different treatment regimen than they would have if I said, no, I don't use cannabis, or at least in my opinion. They were actually like, oh, that's good. Like, we'd rather you use that to help manage pain than an opiate in one occasion. Like when I was in a car accident, they gave me a muscle relaxer, but I didn't want pain medication or pain management. I just wanted to see what was wrong. But yeah, it's definitely interesting to see them moving even in like the traditional doctor's offices, or I don't know what it's even called, modern medicine. Those doctors are being a lot more open to cannabis and not just CBD. Like I'm telling them, yeah, it's like high THC varieties.
I have a quick question in chat that I can answer quickly, but I want to make sure I answered it, and I want to do it on air so that people that are listening can hear it too, because this might be a common question. And Where did I put it? I put it in chat, didn't I? Zach, how do you say that? Galisi. He's asking, he says he's on his first grow. I LST my plant. That stands for low stress training, which means you tie in the branches down, the tall branches down to get everything level. And they're asking, am I supposed to release it from this bondage at some point, or just leave it tied up until they look up, or what? So actually, you can do both. You can leave it tied up if you want to until harvest time, if that's what you want to do. But after a good length of time, I usually wait like 2 to 3 weeks. That branch will be pretty set, and if you release it from its tie down, it'll stay put. But my best advice for you is just do one at a time. And as you release it, you'll be able to tell if the plant moves or doesn't move, or if it can support that weight and all that. You can release one, and if it looks like it's good, then go to the next one, release that one. That's how I would do it.
That's good advice. In my experience with LST, that LST spot where you trained it down, that crooked point, ends up being a point that you're going to have to support come flower. So your training ends up being a support point. So I always end up throwing a bamboo stake, come flower time when I'm LSTing right at that bend.
Are you getting like a snap or a break or a knuckle of some sort where you maybe consider it more of like a super crop or high stress strain at that point?
No, I try not to. It's more of like it's like a lateral, what would you call that? Like a lateral separation of the fibers, not like so they're the long ways, maybe longitudinal, the long ways up and down, fibers breaking apart from each other, rather than the inner fiber breaking inside and cracking and causing that knuckle. So I would like to avoid that, I think.
Like right now I have two amiaces, and the one on the left is right where I'd like it to be. The one on the right is probably 3 to 5 inches higher than the one on the left at the highest points. And I'll go through and I start by doing like LST, where I'm just like kind of shaking it, and like it starts to bend and get closer to that, 3 inches lower from the top of the canopy. And then sometimes I'll take it and pinch real hard and kind of twist down around and get it to like actually drop and fold over. But the LST is definitely effective for people out there that are listening. You don't have to even break anything necessarily. Like it can be so pliable that you can just be bending it and not have to create any snaps or knuckles or bends. And if you have a scrog or a trellis, or in this case, they were asking about tying it down, it depends on your grow space for sure. Like keeping it tied, that'll lock it in place. But some people will argue it's going to like stunt the plant or whatever. One thing I wanted to mention on the LST, when you do have a high straining incident where you're trying to do LST and it becomes like a super crop where you accidentally snap a branch, I just fixed one with tape. And in the past, I've had them survive, but this time, the one, I still have it alive. I wish I would have just taken it and tried to maybe root it as a clone, because all the other branches around it, although it did survive, are probably 5 or 8 inches taller than that at this point. And it's probably not going to make it. I'm coming up to the end of the stretch. So by the time pruning comes around, it's likely just going to get cut off. And it makes me wonder about if it's worth it. And I just want to make sure to let Noah the grow into the room. But yeah, definitely LST and can become HST or high stress training.
That's where the super crop gets a little bit too super. But there was still a change in the plant there. So it's not like it was a total loss, even if you're going to take that branch off. You still created a change in the plant. You changed the auxins and the cytokinin levels, and you still got a flatter canopy because of it. So it's not a total loss. It's just, to me, I just call that, when we get them at work, even still to this day, I just call that a failed super crop. Successful super crop, it'll just bend right back up the next day and be just how you want it. Failed one stays kind of low and everything shoots up past it.
Yeah, it was probably a little too thin when I super cropped it, to be perfectly honest, because it wasn't like a huge branch, and the rest of them around it was just higher up, and I had kind of super cropped one the other direction, and then this one was like shooting out the side of that one. So when I bent it down, it was it didn't have the vigor to come back. Like you're mentioning, it's up now, which is funny. It's just like a tiny little stick in a sea of giant ass stalks. But I want to give Noah the Grower the chance to introduce himself, if he can hear me now, and is all the way into the Zoom call.
Yeah, I'm No Other Grow on Instagram with 2 E's, and you can find me there, and glad to be here.
We are happy to have you back as always. And I think Kyle Breeder might be joining us here in a little bit as well. So happy to see the panel spreading. For a second there, it was me and Matthew Gates at like 3:59 and nobody else. And I almost sent like I was in the middle of sending like 1 is the loneliest number to the group chat because no one was showing up. But last second, like as per usual, I should be used to it at this point. But yeah, you guys really held off there. And I'm happy to have all of you here, to be honest.
I know something we could step on.
I was there at 3:59, motherfucker.
I was there at 4:01 your time. I was a minute late, but I was gonna. I'm always watching Rust and his posts, and he did a post about sulfur, and I did a little, looking into the sulfur before, and again, refreshing. So, Brandon, have you ever seen sulfur toxicity? Because they quote, in quotes, they claim it's hard to really give it toxicity, but have you ever come across that?
I haven't really. If I've only seen sulfur deficiencies when the growth rate is really, really high. The thing about sulfur is that it can cause osmotic stress in the plant. So it can happen if the plants are young, but typically you're not going to be overdosing on sulfur because you're not really giving the soil a bunch of sulfur. Your sulfur comes in on the back of a lot of the minerals that you're putting in there, things like magnesium sulfate, at least for me, magnesium sulfate, potassium sulfate. That sulfate anion, it reacts, and that becomes a separate mineral that the plant has that's available.
Right. So now most of the inputs, that you use, I believe, are like water soluble, aren't they?
Well, what I like to do is I like to mix some different stuff up for granular, because all these things, again, are minerals. And when we're talking about granular, what they've done is they've ground them up into powders and stuff. But for some stuff, I like the water soluble stuff, like the micronutrients, copper, boron, manganese, zinc, and iron. Those are all pretty water soluble. Iron's really, really tricky because of the way that it is so easily oxidized.
Right. Because, I guess what I was thinking is to cause toxicity, it has to be available. So like if there's non-water soluble stuff in your soil, it doesn't mean that it's going to cause a problem because it's not readily available. And the microlife will make it available when necessary is my kind of working theory. I don't know how true that is, but I know you know better. So,
chemistry influences so much of the availability of the mineral nutrient. It affects biology as well. So it's kind of like it's not exactly just a one-way street. Things are really interchangeable. And then also, there's different things change as the soil structure changes, right? Because then what happens is the soil chemistry starts to change as the structure changes, as more oxygen and more space is being utilized, so. But back to the main question. To the main question, though, about sulfur. I've never seen sulfur toxicity, but I've never run sulfur even with heavy amendment from things like gypsum, which is calcium sulfate, Epsom salt, potassium sulfate, even with heavy top dresses at like the beginning of a run to re-amend a bed. I still haven't really seen the sulfur levels go above something that wasn't going to be reasonable or cause an issue.
Very good.
But if we're talking about ppms, we're looking around as it falls into solution for weak acid extraction tests, similar to what a plant would release as like a organic acid or an exudate, a photosynthate. it would be, optimal range would probably be between 60 and 90 parts per million. From what I've seen on my research.
Right. And toxicity isn't until like over 300 probably, right?
Well,
Or
see,
we
I've
don't
never
know.
seen it pushed
Right.
that hard.
Okay.
So, but I've never seen the physical symptoms. If I have, it's not something that I would be able to recognize because it's not something that you regularly see.
Oh, Jack is Dr. Evil. Oh no, the other
Jeff
one.
Bezos is Dr. Evil, motherfuckers. Wants $1 billion, has $1 billion, wants or has penis-shaped rocket ship, has penis-shaped rocket ship, wants moon base, has moon base. If you haven't seen the meme, Google Jeff Bezos as Dr. Evil, and then watch the video of him laughing after he comes down from that fucking rocket ship. Tell me it doesn't sound like Dr. Evil.
What if that was purposeful for the memes?
It was probably.
Then he's
I mean,
epic.
it's really, really easy to
The memes.
influence. For sure.
Yeah, I mean.
For sure. That's
I don't know.
crazy.
If
We
it
live
is
in
the
a-
case, then this motherfucker owes Austin Powers, you know what I'm saying? Some big dollars.
Does art
More-
imitate
He needs
life?
his
Does
royalties.
Life
Yeah.
imitate art. He just copied it. That's
It could be that. I mean, it's like The Simpsons predicting all that shit. I won't get into the specifics because there's been so many times that they got shit, but they throw like 100 things out there and like 10 things stick, right? I want to say what I remembered that I wanted to mention at the beginning of the show, and it's a little bit of a heavier topic, and I don't want to make this show like the rest in peace show, but I do like to pay respect to people in the community, and I know that people on this panel actually have personally grown their gear. So Morningstar Genetics recently passed away, and their daughter, I believe, said that they do not want any fundraisers. So I just want to put it out there and be clear. They said no fundraisers are going to be had to, cover costs of funeral or anything like that. But I just wanted to pay homage and big respect to Morningstar. I never actually grew their genetics. I haven't grown any autoflowers in general, so that's not a knock on them. It's just I'm still a little hesitant, even though I've smoked some great autoflowers. I think they were one of the better autoflower breeders out there that I saw, and a lot of people were really liking to grow their gear. And definitely rest in peace to them, and wanted to give a moment for anybody on the panel if you've grown their gear or know a little bit about them. I just want to say he was always an awesome guy in the streams and stuff that I saw, and got to interact with them and ask questions, and he seemed like a great dude. So it's a big loss to the community, and just wanted to give a moment.
Yeah, I just want to say a few words. I was a tester for him, so I tested some of his autoflowers. I really liked his auto purple microdot. It was the first autoflower I ever grew that got the size of a photo period. You know what I mean? I grew a pretty big tried to grow it in the tent and pretty much outgrew the tent. So, yeah, it's a huge loss to the community, and my heart goes out to the family. And just heed the words of his daughter. If you see somebody auctioning or holding an auction or something for Morningstar seeds, then it's a scam right away, and just ignore it and don't support that. Unfortunately, there are a few vultures out there, so just don't support them. But yeah, other than that, rest in peace. And I've still got some of his seed stocks. So, and I've actually made, this is fucking crazy now that I think about it. It just hit me. It's weird. So one of the first crosses I've made myself was cuvee, because I got a male. And as soon as I had a male, the cuvee, I wanted to do something with the pollen, because, sub is passed. It's a special strain to me because of that. And guess what I hit it with? I hit it with a Morningstar, that tire fire. How crazy is that? So that's a special strain to me now. I don't know. I'll have to figure out a good name for that.
It's an amazing coincidence, and I think that a lot of the breeders in our community are elders, and even if they're not, life, like we have mentioned, is fragile, and people can go too soon. So it is awesome to be able to grow out their genetics and have made your own unique cross of it. And the American one, I think that I remember hearing you talk a little bit about growing some of their gear as well.
Oh, I never grew his gear, but I hung out with him online, like in video chats, like more than once. I never met him in person, but he was always upbeat. He always had something else that he was working on. He always had a project that he was talking about, excited about, and he was always looking to the future. So yeah, when I read that post, I was pretty shocked, because it wasn't like he was an old man. He wasn't a young chicken, but he wasn't old. and yeah, it's just it's really sad that someone that looked to the future so much, is now gone. So my heart goes out to everyone who knew him, personally, and his daughter and everyone. So yeah, rest in peace.
Does anybody else have any thoughts about Morningstar before maybe we move on to a different topic? I just wanted to echo the thing that Spartan said one more time about the making sure that you don't support. I'd say it's probably like 1% of the community of those vultures out there that are doing the shady and nefarious things, whether it's Subcool, whether it's Morningstar, or another breeder who has since passed on. Try to support, if a seed bank maybe supported that person while they're alive and have some of their gear still, that's like one thing. But any Joe Schmo who puts up an Instagram and says that they're selling, seeds from a genetics company that is no longer in business, you have to be a little bit dubious. And in my opinion, I would just say across the board, don't support it. It's the ones that are real are limited and are probably going to be gone very soon. And unless you already know where to get it from, then probably avoid a lot of the pop-up stuff, because it's likely to scam and support somebody who's probably going to go and do that similar kind of business with other people later on. So good to be diligent. And a topic that I talked about in the past was kind of, or thought about doing in the past for a show, was how do you guys go about like vetting a cannabis company? Like, how do you know Bokashi Earthworks is a good one to use, or what breeder you go through? Like, what makes a DJ Short different than I won't throw somebody under the bus, but any number of the people that are just knockoff genetics. There's a lot of them out of Canada and Amsterdam, and I won't name the specific companies, but just to give people the heads up, a lot of the time you'll see a strain like they'll say that they have blueberry. That's one that I can credit DJ Short. He originally made it. He's been the one who's been behind it, and he still sells it. So if you want blueberry, I'd try and get it through Old World Genetics, DJ Short. Why would you go somewhere else? Unless maybe you were looking for something different, like Humboldt Seed Company, Nat. He has a blueberry something else. Does anybody know what he calls it? It's more like of an artificial. I think he calls it like blueberry muffin.
Humboldt Seed Company is Blueberry Muffin.
Yeah, so he has blueberry muffin, which he's not trying to say like, hey, this is like DJ Short's blueberry, because DJ Short's blueberry is more of like a true blueberry or like floral, where he said his is more of like an artificial thing. So like, he's not trying to say like, hey, I've got the original DJ Short blueberry. He's saying I got blueberry muffin. This is the cross that I made it with. So
do you know what the F13 is? I forgot.
From DJ Short, I don't know. Yeah. I think it's a flow cross. F13. It's like Afghani and Thai. A lot of his stuff, if you go through the flow charts, Greenwork 420 has a chart of basically all of DJ Short's crosses that I can try and pull up here. Well, maybe somebody else like Spartan. What do you look for? How do you tell a shitty breeder from a good breeder?
So, I don't know if this is the Midwest in me or the farmer in me. Because fun fact, I was a farmer before I was a cannabis farmer. But for me, it's always, if I meet you in person, that's what I want, number one. If I can just meet them in person, I can tell whether they're, a good person or not. I haven't been fooled very many times. And then secondly, it's all word of mouth for me, man. It's like if my buddies have used somebody or a product and I can see the weed and I fucking smoked the weed and I liked it, I'm interested. But just, you know what I mean? That's what it takes for me, because I have such good friends that are fucking good breeders. And it's like, if you want me to buy seeds, goddamn, it better be godly weed, because fuck that. I'd rather support my friends, you know what I mean, than support somebody outside of my friend group.
I don't buy seeds either. I bought one pack of seeds and I regretted it after I did.
With your non-buying seed policy, I know a lot of people worry about freebies being junk. Usually they get freebies from a seed bank. I'd imagine you're usually trading either Bokashi or your own seeds for other people's seeds, or just getting gifted them out of the kindness of the community's hearts. How do you choose what to grow? And maybe you're just more open because you have a lot of space, so you can grow out a bunch of stuff and see if it's good or not. But Brandon, what's your sort of selection process like if you have 1,000 seeds and you're only going to pop 100?
Oh yeah, so I gotta be like, what do I want, and then what does everybody else want? Because what I want and what everybody else want don't necessarily match up. So I try to create my own hype. I'll be like, feature my shit and be like, my shit's just as good as fucking gelato or whatever. Better terpene profile too, if you ask me. But you know, I have gotten a lot of stuff from the community because people want to see, what their stuff looks like when you have fucking huge plants and, greenhouse full of stuff. Like I got that Bicket OG, that GMO cherry pie. Those things, that fucking plant is amazing. I look for plants that are unique, that are gonna have really awesome terpene profiles that you just don't come across normally. Like if it's really out of place, or if it's really, really like in your face and it's like that is distinctly this. Like I had some pancakes from Aficionado, and it was distinctly, to me, it was distinctly like maple syrup, but like stale cereal. And it's like I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but if you've ever had like old stale cereal, doesn't matter what kind it was, like Fruit Loops or Lucky Charms or whatever, like in an old Tupperware or something, and it like gets old, it has this like old cereal smell. And it was that exactly. And it's so weird because when I smell like something, it instantly brought to mind an image of what it was. Right? When my brain has the ability to automatically connect a scent of a herb with something that is like very unique in my own like psyche, it's just for me like, oh wow, that's fucking this. This is what this is. This is crazy. Let's smoke this.
So Brandon, how many clone onlys or clones are you keeping now? Because when you find that one, do you have a clone of it, or are you going to pop another 100 seeds and find it again?
Well, so what I've been doing, like I ran a bunch of Black Lime Reserve, and while it was good, it wasn't like that, really wasn't like the stuff that I ran through wasn't super
Smacky in the
great.
face. Yeah.
Yeah, there were some in there that were really nice that I kept, a couple phenos. And the rest, what I did is I did an open pollination with the best of the males, which was the Limarilla times Mac V2. And I did open pollination. And I'll go through all of those and I'll check everything, make sure there's no intersex on any of the phenos. I already did this. But and then I also I chose the best phenotypes that I liked, and then I chose one outlier of the Limelight, and then I did an open pollination with that same male. So that whole thing got hit with the one male that I chose, and then I also have a copy of that male, right? So,
so just a handful you're keeping in cut form, and then right, making a bunch of seeds to.
Yeah. So what I did was I actually took cuts. So I had multiple clones of everything. So each phenotype, I had approximately between 4 and 7 of those actual plants, right? So what I did was I put them all next to each other, let's say 1 through 33 of the Black Lime Reserve females. Had all of those, and I had a whole, I had like 2 tables of that, equaling, somewhere like, over 100 plants, 150 or whatever plants there was. And so I could look at more than just one, but as a clone, not from seed. And I could run through those, look at the stability as a clone, stress test them in smaller pots to see how hungry they were, and then, take all my notes on which ones were the best ones. And then I did an open pollination just to open up that whole lineup. So that way, when I go through there next time, I'll separate all of my phenotypes from the selected pheno number, of like the Black Lime Reserve, and I'll organize all that, right? And then when I start testing, I can test pheno number 36, and I can see how it compares to all the other phenos that I test. And that'll give me a really good idea of how that male expresses itself, especially when I start running the other varieties that I ran using that same male. And since I have it backed up, I can put that on ice, keep it as a clone for now, that male. And if I want to go and take any of those cuts that I kept from the F1s, I can use a different male and pollinate those. So that's kind of like long-term plan to go through that line specifically, because there's something in the Black Lime Reserve, and I'm not sure if it's a terpene, but it might be an ester or an alcohol that it's producing. It's something, but it's what makes the death breath smell and have this really unique flavor. And I can see it in the Black Lime Reserve. I can smell it on some of the phenotypes. It's just not as pungent. And so I'm like trying to figure out how to get that out more. So I cross it into something that already has the lime that's a little stronger, to pull out this really like crazy like musk that it has. Like, it's really hard to describe.
Brandon, earlier you asked about F13, and I mentioned that Greenwork 420 has a post of DJ Short's work and how it breaks down. And this is that post. It's like he has thousands of posts, so I had to scroll pretty far to find this. And I just wanted to kind of walk people through, because there's one thing that's cut off at the bottom. It says hog, but it's not like the San Diego hog. This means Highland Oaxacan Gold hog. And that next cross is chocolate tie, which is cut off, which the F1 he refers to as purple tie, which he crossed to an Afghani male, which made the floral line, which he has it looks like F1, F2, and F3, which the temple flow comes out there, and that starts working its way into the blueberry. But if you go up, you can find original flow, blue velvet, and then F13. So that came from the floral line, and you go up, there's a F3, F4, F5 is where you find the F13 from DJ Short. So it's an F5 of what was originally a Highland Oaxacan Gold
chocolate tie Afghani.
Yep. So that's just the breakdown.
Interesting.
For the people that are curious, the blueberry line comes out of the temple flow, which is crossed to the Highland tie Afghani male, which I believe is the same, or maybe it's not. It could be a different Highland tie over here, crossed to Afghani, which he calls HTAF.
So I have this F13 before JD got mad at me. He gave me this F13 crossed with F4 blueberry.
That's pretty badass. Yeah, you could see the blueberry is where we're kind of working.
That's two separate lines. Yeah, that should be interesting.
I bet you there's some pretty good vigor, because they're both, I mean, an F4 crossed to an F5.
And then that's all. It's crazy because if you look at the blueberry too, it says right there Highland tie and Afghani to make the blueberry line.
Yep, with the little mix of the Highland Oaxacan Gold chocolate tie, and then the
he bred those two together to make the blueberry. I see.
Yeah, because if you see the
it was an F3. Oh, and I see. So the F4. Oh no, he made the F. Okay, I see. Yeah, I get it.
The F3 floral line times the Highland tie times Afghani made the first blueberry F1.
That's correct.
And then if he gave you an F4, so yours would be like 4 generations down, the F4 times the 13 on the floral line.
The F4 was, I think, the first blueberry line that he released back in 1998, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe you're correct. He's been using that F4 male since the late 90s, and it's 1997 or 1998.
Yeah, and so my friend from San Diego, he's been growing since the 90s, and in 2000 he actually got a pack of that blueberry from that first drop, and that's where he pulled his blueberry male out to make that Trainwreck blueberry, the Romulan blueberry, the Bull Rider blueberry, the P91 blueberry, and all of the other blueberry stuff that he did.
For people who ask me why I took Velvet Punch to F3, and you know, like a lot of people just want to make their own F1 with whatever crosses they have, I think that DJ Short has a great track record of making some really awesome genetics that were super stable. And you could see by looking at this chart here, it wasn't like he did it overnight. He's been breeding since the late 70s or early 80s, from what I recall, and he started making stuff available to the public in the 90s. But yeah, he's definitely put out some of the most land-breaking work, I think, as far as the Flow, the F13, Blueberry, and some of the stuff that came from it, like Blue Dream is here because of DJ Short's Blueberry. And granted, the other half of that was a haze, but he had a huge impact on the cannabis community, and I think that it's cool that he's still around. And he's an older guy too, so I hate to, put it out there, but everybody has their day come eventually, and we got to respect and show love to these people while they're here. So big ups to DJ Short. If he ever sees this, we'd love to have him on the show. I'll probably reach out to him at some point, and hopefully we can get him on. That'd be
And
really
I see
cool.
him a lot at events. If I run into him, I'll ask him to come on the show, man. It's not that I have pull with a guy, but I'll ask him anyway. I don't care.
Never
I don't
hurts.
care. I look like a fool to try to get a fucking legend on a show, man.
The worst they could say is no, and then we're in the same position we are now. That's the way I always feel about it. It's like a lot of these guys are really cool. Tommy Chong came on, I think, one of the European guy shows. I think it was Percy's Grow Room.
I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the Northern Lights is going to be re-emerging later in the year, and next year it's going to be like all rebranded. The guy Greg McAllister, who created it, and his son Aaron are working on a project to bring back a lot of the old school genetics from his library right now.
That's exciting. That's really exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be really cool, man. They have some really cool stuff. Original NL5 times things like White Widow, Trainwreck stuff. All the old.
I have a old strain. Skilbo has it right now for me. But well, I told him I'm done with it, but it's a old Northern Light 5 times headband, and it's called Headlights. and fucking when I grew it in my system or whatever, it always was like, man, I always thought it was just piney is what I would get from it, but everybody said it was smelled like Salisbury steak, and they'd always say some kind of meat, but I never got that out of it, so it was weird. But then when he gets it, he said it started out one way and now it's starting to change to something else. So that's really interesting to see how people grow the same damn thing and it can change in different grow environments.
You know what? I haven't seen any like really heavy straight pine bud lately. I hardly even see pinene as a top terpene. And I remember specifically some of the best smoke that I had that, not only that front end where you could really smell that pungent pine aroma, but where it had almost like a mentholated type of smoke on it, where it was just really full smoke. That full flavor of pine as well.
The beta pinene is more of like the bronchodilator. It opens up your lungs a lot. And one strain I'm about to grow, or two actually, I got the Pine Tar Kush from CSI Humboldt, as well as the 79 Christmas Bud, which are both.
Check this out.
I think Sequence, has that too now, and he's getting ready to pop some of that.
Yeah, that's going to be my next run with Velvet Punch F2 and F3 side by side.
Nice. That's exciting. What's he got?
We've got a plant, people.
What it says on there.
79 Xmas Bud.
Nice.
Yeah, someone just gave this to me. So I was like, oh,
crazy.
Cool.
I was born in 78.
Dude, that shit used to come around Ohio all the time. Other than skunk, Christmas Bud, and pine was all we had. And I think that partially there are some sativas. Like I grew Blue Dream, which had a good amount of pinene. But the Pine Tar Kush and 79 Christmas Bud are both, like, if I'm not mistaken, packy indicas. So they're not supposed to be really long flowering. I think a lot of it's gone away because a lot of those longer flowering Mexican sativas that you and I used to see, Brandon, that had some of the pioneer stuff, that's not really grown anymore. And especially like in your situation commercially, people aren't growing stuff past like 8, 9, maybe 10 weeks, especially like 12 to 16 weekers.
Yeah. I was talking to my partner about how awesome it would be to just have a dedicated house just to pop like landrace stuff, long flowering varietals, just for, just to see like, get into those, because again, those things aren't commercially viable really, or efficient is when it comes to like cost efficiency and everything. So
They could maybe greenhouse might be.
yeah, that's what we were talking about, having just a greenhouse. And some of the stuff like the NL5 haze that I grew, I mean, I took that to 12 weeks and it could have probably gone an additional week. And those do have the most like kind of pine profile, but they also had that citrus combination in there too. Not like Jack, but not unlike Jack. It's just different.
I was vaping
like different tones.
Some Jack Rec before I came on from a group out here. Jack Herrera crossed to Trainwreck. So talk about like beta pining heavy and that super like Jacky smell, like that sharp, almost citrusy, like just sharp as hell. It hits
it's like
you
a
nose
floor
really
cleaner
hard.
kind of.
Yeah, very cleaner-esque. And I like that for daytime. It's like good focus, uplifting stuff for me. So shout out to Creme de Cana. That's one of the brands that grows it, and they're one of the social equity brands. They kind of don't have like fancy labels or branding or anything, but the cannabis and concentrate is really fucking good. So and 710 Labs is the other one. I was trying to think like last week, I think I was naming off like good brands in the legal market, maybe on even on another show, but it was those two that I forgot. And the so just shout out to those.
I wanted to bust your balls a little bit on Jackie smell. Come on, man. You gotta be careful what we say here. Jackie smell.
Well, like out here, there was a period where Jack was grown so often, and same with Trainwreck, that people were like, I don't want anything that smells like Jack. I don't want any Jack crosses. I don't want any Jack Herrera.
Shit, my buddy's still blowing up the J1 cut out there. This has been around for dude, like he's probably had that thing for like damn near 20 years now.
My buddy Breddit, I know the guy who made the J1 out here in San Diego. Well, my buddy's buddy, I'm in that circle. Like how you were with the Bull Rider in San Diego, the J1 crew is who I run with, and I've been fortunate enough to have it been passed my way a few times, and that's a big yielder, crazy
that's
strong
why he
smell.
grows it.
It's like 3+ a light, easy if you know what you're doing on the old school HPS stuff. And like a lot of guys have switched over to ceramic metal halides, and it really shines there, in my opinion, more so than under even some of the more modern LEDs, weirdly enough. What do you guys think about that whole? I think Kevin Drodry is one of the first people I heard putting out the idea that like some stuff like OG Kush, because it was grown under HPS for so long, maybe does better under the certain light spectrum that it was bred and grown under. Do you have any ideas or thoughts on that?
I feel like it'd be a really I feel like I feel like that kind of an adaptation wouldn't cause a whole lot of a change. I guess it would really depend on what exactly is changing, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like that's probably not true.
I think it's
dude,
preference.
how can you backtrack hundreds of thousands of years of evolution in a few generations? It seems unlikely. I could believe it if I saw some research, but it seems unlikely.
Here's what, like, to give more reference on the situation. So like he would be in a situation where he ran a nursery, so he'd be giving out stuff to a bunch of people, or somebody's growing it under HPS, some people are growing it greenhouse, some people are growing it full sun, and then he would see the different examples of how it expresses. And in many cases, I think maybe he just preferred the people that were growing HPS, and it looks a certain way, has a certain terpene profile, because whether it's HPS or any other different spectrum, like I personally think LED makes the terpiest, frostiest bud and biggest yields per watt used with the modern LEDs. But a lot of people love their HPS. Like Noah the Grower kills it with HPS, and it might be tough for him to transition like overnight because the way that his setup is. So it's definitely tough. And I'm curious, Noah, what are your thoughts on it?
I've had a little experience with people's LEDs in their rooms and stuff, and I mean, I think as so long as you got your everything else on point, your environment and stuff, I think light can do that. I know a buddy of mine grew on HPS for a long time, and then he switched to like the badass Kavita lights LEDs, and he told me at first he was just getting like similar numbers, and then he said within like 2 harvests he'd like doubled it. So I mean, and this is this dude knows what he's doing. So I was like, oh wow. So I know that different lights you can achieve different stuff. So
Yeah, I feel like it would be more likely that that kind of light would have a specific effect on the physiology directly, rather than it being some sort of like, evolutionary adaptation.
Well, this is I'm agreeing with you guys, but this is my thoughts on it, and that's like, if we suspend the having to have proof that it happened, and we just accept that, okay, we'll pretend that that's the case, that the plant adjusted to that light and is now optimized for that light. Well, if you put it under another light, isn't it just going to do the same thing? Isn't it just going to optimize itself? So after a few runs or whatever, this plant is, we get 3-4 runs a year. If you're running inside, you're going to have 4 generations a year. It shouldn't take long to have that plant adapt to the new light source. So I think that's kind of a wash. It's not really an argument.
Well, and my buddy who grew a decade, vegan doja dene, I reference him often, under greenhouse and full sun only, he sent me seeds, and I grew them under artificial indoor light, and they grew fantastically. Amazingly, they grew, like, I got expressions that maybe he's never even seen because he only grew them outside. And I grew them under certain spectrums that he didn't have them adapted to. So like I saw different things, but they both did great. I don't think that there's necessarily, I think really what was happening, and I thought this for a long time because I read High Times growing up, and I loved the pictures of buds that were grown under HPS for most of the time. They're very like golf ball, like dense. I think a lot of the LED growers, when they're switching over before they get it dialed in, maybe brought a little too high DLI, and you see a lot of the foxtailing and like white hairs even late and stuff like that. The bud just doesn't look as dense and frosty as you see under a lot of the HPS rooms. So I do think it comes down to dialing in the environment, getting the proper amount of light to the canopy, and knowing how much light to run in a room. Because if you're just like, oh, well, replace 1,000 watts with 1,000 watts, in my opinion, you're going to go overboard. So it's definitely a balance point, especially for people switching, because it's so easy to get used to like running at 75 degrees in the room, and then you find out about like leaf surface temperature, and maybe LEDs should be run a little bit hotter. And that adjustment alone, I think, like Noah's buddy said, oh, I'm getting similar weight as I used to get on HPS. Maybe he figured out, oh, if I run it a little bit warmer or dial in my VPD or something else that he wasn't doing before, then he was able to double his previous production, which is sort of what I'm seeing in my own personal experience, and as well as many other gardeners I've seen switch over. Tao, I know you've got a mix of lights over there. Do you ever grow the same cut under different lights, and what do you think about the variations?
Well, so far, all of my flowering has been done under HPS, but I have all my veg now covered with LEDs. So I have noticed a difference though when I put them from the like my T5s, which used to be fluorescent under the LEDs. They definitely started that red. They definitely had nutrient problems that I had to attend to. But now, even though T5s, I got all LED replacement bulbs for that. So, but I'm ready to start. I'm ready to try an LED in flower. So I'm going to do that shortly.
Spartan, I think I know at least at Mitten Canico, don't you guys veg under LED and flower under HPS as well?
Our flower rooms are mixed, but yeah, we have mostly HPS. So we have 2 rows of HPS and 1 row of LED. We have those Fluence high bays or whatever in the middle. So yeah, we're all LED and veg. And then the thing is these fucking, you're going to get me bitching. These fucking LED companies want to fucking design all these fucking LEDs for basement grows. And that doesn't really transfer to commercial grow. When you have all these wide spread out lights with bars and stuff, then you have to have the fucking lights close to the canopy, which means you have to fucking adjust lights all the time. So those high bay, what are they called? The Fluence, shit, I don't know what they're called. They look like what you would see in greenhouses. They're very small.
Like a truss light. They're meant for the truss of a greenhouse,
Exactly. And those things, we just keep them way up high, and they just light up the whole fucking room. It's fucking beautiful.
They're like light cannons. It's crazy when you look at how much, like, they could be 1,000-watt bar and it will cover just
I think
pounds
ours are
light
like
down.
670 or something like that.
So is that the reason why you haven't switched out all the HPSs? Because you haven't
No,
found a
it's the
commercial?
cost thing, right? So we're just
Okay.
replacing them all the time, and we've had one company actually offer to do a whole room for us, so we might have to do that because you can't turn down a free light. Shit.
You got to get on what's his name, GML's level, and get the fucking adjustable thing full of Diablos when you're
I've
a light rep.
already talked to Steven, the owner, and I told him, I said, hey, if we're gonna get these damn bar lights in here, we're gonna have to get a hold of Lift and Grow, because I don't want to be, because I'm the guy that does that. I don't want to be adjusting these lights so much. And so I don't know. He had some concerns. So I don't know if it's going to happen or not, or if it's just going to be me going up and down a ladder. But I'm going to have some strong ass legs, man.
And
Dude, the
arms,
amount of-
shit, pulleying, like hitting those fucking ratchet things up there.
The amount of fixtures GML has in that space is, I'm jealous. I mean, it looks like there is no room for any more.
Yeah, it looks so uniform and so perfect. It looks great.
Is he dimming those down at all? Because I just have to imagine it's over if he had them all at 100%, unless he's maxing out CO2. Like, I gotta wonder.
I don't even know. I'll have to ask him next time, next Friday, if I can remember.
Because those Diablos put out a shit ton of light, and they're super efficient. And
Yeah,
you
he's
have
got
that
up pretty
many.
high.
He's a stickler about the CO2. He likes that ramped up big time.
I'm curious, man. I root for him. It just seems like a lot of, and hopefully this pushes him to do better. But a lot of the times in his grows that I followed throughout the years, he'd like go on vacation and then like blame the plant sitter and be like, oh, so and so messed up and now I got to recover this, and like we didn't have a great run, we could have done better numbers, this and that. And it's like, now you've got everything. You built the facility from the ground up. You got all the lights you want. You got everything you want. So if something messes up this run, like, it's on you, buddy. Like,
Yeah,
so
well, you
keep
know,
that shit together.
He's actually publicly said it too. So
even
he
when
said,
he complains.
so this was the joke. This was the joke. He said he didn't feel like he'd earned the title Grand Master level anymore, and so I've been just calling him level for the last couple of weeks.
I'll tell you what,
adequate
though, Jack,
level.
he's a perfectionist, because those crops that he's like, yeah, we could have done way better. They were not, bad at all. They just weren't great, So that's another thing. He's a perfectionist a little, and just when he knows he could have got
he's
more,
ridiculous
right?
perfectionist.
When he knows he could have got more or it could have been better, he'll point it out. And
yeah, he's definitely pretty hard on himself for sure.
Well, and I think he really wants to be fair on the lights as an evaluation. He's like, these really could have done more. I had my people fucked up, or I fucked up, or we did this wrong, and we could get more out of it. I'm not sure what numbers Brandon's putting out. I haven't gotten to look at them yet, but I'm sure they're similarly close, if not better. And you're doing a great job over there too, Brandon. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on the whole lighting thing, because I don't think you touched on it too much. But do you notice any of those differences from like old school clones being run under an HPS versus now that you're running predominantly LED or almost exclusively LED, I think?
So I run LEDs in my container, and then all HPS in the mixed light greenhouses, because that's what we could afford. But as far as the container, I'm just doing breeding and stuff right now. At the Majestic facility, which I don't work there anymore. I'm just doing my own thing. They were using, I think, 460 or 480 watt LED boards. And, you could do easily, 60 pounds out of that, it's like a 40 light room.
So that's like
it's 19 it's like 19 something thousand watts, a little over 19,000 watts.
You were pulling about 60 pounds.
Yeah.
I'm trying to work the numbers backwards on this for the people, because I know most people aren't that good at mental math.
I've done the math before. I just don't remember it. But yeah, I think they're 480. They're the old HLGs before they started manufacturing the 600 model.
Yeah, you had the V2 R spec, I think is what it was called. They were 480 watts. You were pulling about 19,200 watts of LED and harvesting about 27,240 grams. If it was 60 pounds is roughly that, 454 times 60. So definitely clear over the 1 gram a watt. You got, I mean, 19, almost 10,000 extra grams on top of the 1 gram a watt, which is pretty damn good across 19,200 used. 27,240 divided by 19,200, 1.418 grams per watt out of the HLG V2R specs, which is pretty damn respectable at commercial scale and completely organic everything. So hats off to that, Brandon. I'm definitely curious.
I haven't tested yet, so that's the next thing. We'll see if because I'm gonna put an automatic fertigation system in there, and I'm gonna do like kind of a custom nutrient blend using all the organic inputs because I have some. I'm gonna do some amino chelated micronutrients because what I'm seeing on SAP is you can have sufficient amounts in soil and even falling into solution, but I'm not sure exactly what's happening. It's not being transported or it's not being uptakes. There's some kind of disconnect in there. So I'm looking
Foliar
at
is an option, maybe.
exactly. So amino chelated micronutrients can be foliar applied, or they could be used as, you know, in conjunction as like, oh, I need a micronutrient blend. I can water that in. So I'm gonna see what that looks like on a SAP test. But that's really what I want to do first. I want to get all these data sets because I have all my data sets. I'll work through them all, and then I'm just going to build a nutrient feeding program off of the data that I've collected and see if, you know, because the thing with those LEDs, man, you got to like be able to have your room needs to be at the right VPD, the temperatures. It's like, especially if you're running them close to the canopy, like I don't think I can turn up the 465 watt ones that I have that are in that vertical system because they're too close to the canopy. I don't think I can turn them up higher than maybe like 65%. Because I'm only, you know, maybe like at the start of it, I can be probably around 3 feet away from it, but they're gonna grow. So they grow so fast that you know, they're, you know, 6 inches away from those lights by, you know, when they're finished stretching.
I had a question going back to the Majestic facility, just because you have the numbers going out and you no longer work there. So it's sort of just like you're unbiased looking back at how things went. And you said the numbers that you got per somebody, I think it was Smiley's Garden in the chat, said what they measure by is grams per square foot, you know, per harvest, or how many harvests you get per year.
So I think it's like this. Hold on. So the tables there were 16 feet long, 5 feet wide, and there was 10 of them. So 6 by 10 by 15, right? 16 by 5 by 10, 800 square feet.
So there's your answer for Smiley. If you want to work the numbers backwards, you can on that one. I know grams per square foot is definitely something, if you're growing in a small space or a large space, that can be worth trying to increase the amount of, like I'm in only 5 square feet and trying to get the maximum amount of grams out of that 5 square feet as possible. I do the same concept of grams per square foot.
30, it's about 34, 35.
That's solid. I know people that double stack, they can get up into, like Kyle Cushman claims, like closer to like the 70s, but he has 2 rows in that square foot technically. But yeah, definitely, I'm curious. I've seen numbers, but a lot of people like these people claim this stuff and then their businesses go out of business. They're like publicly traded, like Canadian companies or some shit. And they're like, oh yeah, we get 45 grams per square foot. And then they're bankrupt. And it's like, well, were you growing mids or were you not actually hitting those numbers? Or like what else was going on? So it's just one metric. I think that your product is undeniable and the tests say it and the visuals agree with it. And all the people that have gotten to try it have had good things to say about it so far that I've seen. So big ups to you over there doing good things. Spartan, how long do you think, do you guys have a plan, I guess, at Mint and Canico to transition to LED? Because it seems like when I first saw you guys, it was all HPS in the flower rooms, and this LED thing is a new addition. It used to just be the veg was LED, if I remember correctly.
It's cost of getting in. So, as we are profitable, we can afford to upgrade, and that's kind of the way we're going. Sorry, my mom is blowing up my phone right now.
It's all good. Cheers, Mama Spartan Grown.
She collects tins, and she got a new tin, so she's excited to show it to me. But yeah, so we right now I think they actually just put that middle row in the last room, so every room has a row of LED in it now. So the next step will be, actually replacing HPS, and that's when we're going to start seeing some savings because, we've just been adding light to the rooms. So because we only had the 2 rows of HPS, and we've just recently added a 3rd row down the middle of LED, and now we'll just replace those HPS, probably 1-to-1 with LEDs.
That's kind of why I haven't replaced my HPS too. It's just the cost. But like I said, I've heard people say that if you get a really high end light, that it pays for itself right away. But man, it's tough to just retire gear like that, I guess.
I always like the saying, don't fix what isn't broken. And in your case, like you have a killer system. So it's tough to like say, oh, I'm going to just go fix the system up. Even though there's like new stuff out there, you're getting good numbers per what you've got. You've got all your air conditioning sized per your lights. Your space, the cultivars you're running. So it's like, even if you decide like, I'm going to take one HPS down and put one LED up to start, like that might work, but you might have some difficulties with that for a number of.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is you can't really do that. It's like really the best move is to totally replace it. And that's why I think so many people drag their feet on doing it, because it's a massive undertaking to fucking adjust everything.
Yeah, I say Noah, keep the HPS, because in a few years, Kevin Jodry will be looking for some OG Kush and he'll want it under HPS and you'll be the only guy with it.
I need clarification from chat. So I was just tagged by Chad Westport in chat. He says 1-to-1 or watt for watt at Spartan Grown. I have no idea what that refers to.
Like 1-to-1 lights or watt to watt LED.
Oh, it's not watt for watt. So yeah, okay. So it would be fixture for fixture. Our HPS are running at 1,000 watts, and we'll be replacing them with, I'm assuming, something in the 600 watt range.
Going back to the grams per square foot thing, Smiley just was clarifying earlier. He was just trying to say, like, if you had a 12-week plant versus an 8-week plant, or in the case where, like, I've seen guys like the Scrog King who will veg a plant for like half a year and then veg it into a 4x4 and like yield a pound plus off of one plant in a 4x4. But it's like he only gets like however many harvests per year. So if you're getting 2 harvests per year and getting a pound per crop, you get 2 pounds, right? You'd be better off to grow 5 or 6 crops and get like a half pound each crop and not take so long to veg it out. So that is kind of the idea where he's getting at. And I do agree with that. I'm personally bad about, because I grow from seed every time, not like I just flipped Amy is just a flower and I'm all excited watching it stretch. And I should have popped seeds like a few weeks ago, because the amount of time I'm vegging to like have a plant ready to go into flower, it's roughly about the same time that it takes for the plant to flower. So like 60 days or less, roughly, like that 9-week period from seed. I can train the plant and have it ready, but I usually wait and then have downtime between harvest. And it's good to keep a schedule and work your timelines backwards so you don't miss out on like probably a harvest per year with those few weeks that add up to a whole crop. Because like that was one thing when I first started growing that I didn't consider. Like people are like so fixated, I want that 8-weeker versus the 9-weeker or even a 10-weeker. And like if people think about it, and it's easy to look at it on paper, but like an 8-weeker versus a 10-weeker, you get 2 extra weeks each harvest. So 4 harvests per year, you got yourself an extra crop. That's the 5th crop right there. And a lot of people think that maybe they want that longer flowering thing, and maybe they do. Maybe that's the best medicine for them. So it's worth getting 1 less crop per year if you're getting the exact cannabinoids that you're looking for.
Yeah, I feel like it makes intuitive sense that having a whole extra harvest would probably outpace, a little bit more chunk on the plants. But I could see it going either way. You know what I mean?
Well, what's more important? Is it yield or is it quality? Or
And are you limited by plant count? Are you only allowed 6 plants? Do you have to grow monsters?
There's so many factors, but
Yes.
do you have to sacrifice quality to do a run in a young strain? If you guys ever run like a 14-week strain, it's different.
Fuck yeah.
You have to have it usually has higher nutritional requirements.
For me, 12 weeks is the longest I've personally taken a plant. And I've heard good things about the 16 and 22-week sativas, but I just haven't had the patience personally. I know that like some people's strategy is if you have like a perpetual harvest, you stick that like long flowering sativa over in the corner, and then you've got your other stuff that cycles through. So you've got like a plant here that's in like week 2, a plant here that's in like week 4, one in week 6, and then you're pulling one down. And then you've got your like sativa over there, and you're like, is it ready yet? No, it's not. I'll just fucking let it keep going. And you've still got yourself some smoke while you just got that kind of unique thing over there. And sure enough, like most people, if you get to share it with your friends or family or whoever, somebody will end up loving that really long flowering sativa and be like, that's the one for me. Like, that's my only one. And then you'll get stuck growing it for the rest of your life if you're committed to your patience.
Hey guys, I gotta get out of here. My dog is down here and he is hungry. He's being a bully and knocking things around. So it's about time for me to sign off.
Say hi to Chubby Chase for us.
I will. I'll see you guys all later.
All right, man.
Peace out, Brandon.
Have a good
Thanks
one,
for
man.
your input.
Yeah, literally and metaphorically.
Always happy to have him. I didn't even realize that he's no longer with Majestic Craft Cannabis, so now I can just say with Black Label Organics and Bokashi Earthworks, and at rust.brandon on Instagram is the best place to find him, or bokashiearthworks.com. I'm going to recommend to a family member his Microbe Plus, because their grow is doing all right, but I think it could be thriving a little bit more, and that Microbe Plus and maybe a little bit of his Amino N Plus will probably kick it up to the next level for those organic growers out there. Definitely check out his stuff. He's got some killer products from the Bokashi to everything else. Does anybody have any final topics? We've got about half an hour, 15 minutes until Spartan Grown hits the road. So I'm curious if you guys have any thoughts or maybe questions from the chat that you wanted to get to this week.
Man,
Yeah.
you got something good, because I was saying I can't think of shit.
Well, I guess I would just want to echo that I am kind of excited. I really liked the conversation I had recently. Like literally, I had 2 live streams today. This one and the one right before it on my Instagram. And it was just I just found it really enlightening, because the individual they did their thesis on, get this, like basically they found like a hypovirulent strain of a fungus. So one that does not like really cause disease symptoms in the host. And what they did was they applied it to the plant, and so normally this strain is actually this species of fungus is a pathogen, but since this one isn't, it actually excludes the pathogen from being able to like take up residence in the plant, and that's pretty cool to me. And so we talked about a bunch of like heady, soil and just general microbiome like interactions and dynamics.
Just I'm interested, so maybe you got into it, but did it also kind of do the what the fuck is it called, the SAR, the SAR
systemically acquired resistance?
it stimulate the immune system of the plant, like it was under attack by a fungus to be like on guard
almost
more.
So that wasn't like the direct intent, but and we didn't quite get into that, but we did talk about how pretty much in all cases, when you have an endophyte, particularly like a fungal endophyte, but really bacterial, fungal, whatever, they have to and he put it very sharp. He put it very sharply. Not to mince words, they have to go through the immune system to do that. And I articulate that as you have to defeat the immune system. So some way they have to convince, however you want to use it. Sometimes it's more forceful, I guess, than others. And we've talked about how symbioses can go from like mutual to not. But I'm sure that there was some level of like immune system elicitation because of the foreign agent in the body, which I think is really interesting.
One other fun fact that I learned just last night, in fact, from my buddy Steve Reisner from Potent Ponics. He was saying that they have actually taken the gene out of the cannabis plant that is the Autoflower gene, the ruderalis, and they're putting it into other vegetables to try to force flowering faster and increase production.
That's interesting.
I thought that was crazy. I'm like, oh man. So
that's particularly interesting because I feel like there's other plants that could have done that easier with. So it's just surprising to me. I wonder if there's like something unique about ruderalis.
It's massive production and it's really resistant. It's drought resistant.
We're just talking about bolting or going to flower, like right?
The trigger effect or whatever. Yeah.
Maybe they feel like that with cannabis, it's you're usually not just getting one thing. You're usually getting a gene package. So like that package that comes along or whatever that trait, that allele that they believe that they've targeted, maybe they're CRISPRing in to other plants. I don't know how it's happening, but maybe there is like further reasoning. But
they have a control, right? They have one that's a photo and one that's an auto, so they can kind of like go, these genes mean this and those genes mean that, and they can discern.
I feel like they would. Well, a lot of that stuff is conserved between plants, so not all of them, but
did they find, like, since cannabis is such a money crop, did they actually study like any other plants genetically as much as they're doing cannabis right now?
I mean, we really understand bolting for a lot. I mean, it's been like necessary for the human species.
Right, there is one plant that has the whole genome mapped.
Sequence, the genome
it's like a fern
of other plants.
Okay. There's one like a fern that they've done everything on. They've done
more. They've done trees too.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's one that's like notoriously well studied. Like they've looked at it like pretty much every way that you can categorize it and look at it, genome sequence it. I can't think of the name of the plant. Dr. MJ referenced it one time, and I looked into it, and I was like, "Holy shit!" There is a lot of, but cannabis is one of the most widely studied plants.
Maybe
Arabidopsis is not a
they use that. They use that a lot in a lot of experiments.
I wanted to cut in here and make sure I was good on my source here. Smash the Cannabis. Shout out to you in chat. Reminding me that was on the Fumidor. Is it called Fumidor in the Flavor? I think it's just called. Oh, that's Fumidor show.
Fumidor in the Flavors.
Yeah. Just go to his show. I mean, I don't know what he called. Oh, it's called the Brews and
Buds.
Is the Saturday night show.
Yeah, different names for different days.
I was trying to remember. It's all coming. My mind is just a little bit slow right now. I've been smoking a little.
No, for sure. Honestly, that's interesting. I wasn't trying to like knock it. I was just saying that it was surprising based on that context. But that's really cool.
It's surprising to me too, because if I would have thought, oh, CRISPR is a thing, right? You can like take like maybe traits from a tomato and put it into cannabis, or traits from whatever you want to try and splice into cannabis. I thought it would have been going the traditional like food and fruits and trying to like bring like, well, let's put that strawberry into the cannabis, like how people talk about the strawberry cough story and things like that. That's what I thought would have been happening. But to hear that it's taking the cannabis genes and putting it out into like the food, because to me, there's so many non-cannabis people, I would be worried that, okay, like let's say you got autoflower cucumbers or whatever, but the autoflower gene came from cannabis, and now you've got like the Bible Belt type of people that are like, I'm not going to eat that autoflower and cucumber cannabis cross because it's the devil's cucumber or whatever,
Devil's lettuce cross. That's right.
Literally, yeah. Like what
Nobody pays that much attention. They don't give a shit where their food comes from.
Many people
You're
don't
right.
know that's very true. But yeah, one way or the other.
I want to answer a question really quick. Eric is asking me. It's a good question, specifically about autoflower germination. He says, "Do you have any tips on germination and seedling transplanting with autos? I'm trying my first autos, and I'm 1 for 3 on germination and 0 for 1 on transplant. So I try to keep it real fucking simple with autos. And what I do is I do the same thing I do with like a fucking clone. I use a root riot cube. I get a nice moist root riot cube and I throw a seed, just put it in there until it's past the top of the hole. I don't want to push it down very far at all. And then I throw it in my little cube holder that I put my clones in too. It's the same one in that clone dome. And then when it pops, as soon as it pops out and I see that it's popped out, I take it right out of there because I don't want to have to worry about trying to harden it off and all that bullshit. And I plant it right in its final pot most, like 98% of the time. Some people will put them in smaller cups or 1 gallon pots and then do a transplant, but it's easy. I mean, autoflowers, I mean, it's not terrible hard to do a transplant, but if you fuck up the transplant, it's going to stunt the autoflower and you're going to get a terrible yield out of it. So much easier just to throw in this final pot and forget about it and let it do its thing.
I've seen so many autos that are like this big, like an eighth or smaller, because they probably transplanted and it got stunted, or maybe the taproot hit the bottom of a solo cup or shot glass or whatever it was started in, and they didn't transplant it soon enough to the final cup.
Yeah.
They're like literally this big and that big around. And there is a guy who actually grows them in shot glasses because like he can't trim. Stunted art, which I'll probably pull up his page just because it's very visually pleasing. But yeah, definitely want to get, like Spartan said earlier with the purple microdot, it's nice when you can grow auto that is as big as a photo. Some people want the smaller plants, but it's satisfying to see an auto be able to perform like that.
It's fucking amazing when you see that because you're not used to an auto being that big and vigorous and crazy.
That stunted art Instagram feed is pretty cool. He recently posted one where I think he identified a boron deficiency because in those little pots, you know, but he claimed it was from a pH lockout. But it was really interesting the colors that came up on that deficiency.
So for those who don't know, Stunted Art is a Instagram page where they grow in basically the equivalent of like a shot glass sized solo cup looking thing, and they have like trays full of them. And I think that they just they have like a pumice stone on the top is what you're seeing. Tao's talking a little bit about this is what molybdenum deficiency looks like.
That's what it
people
was.
of planet Earth, molybdenum. Yeah, so the first person I actually heard talk about molybdenum deficiency and like it being purple was actually Potent Ponic Steve. He has been looking at plant, like Brandon, a lot of tissue analysis and sap tests and things like that. And he realized, oh, I've got all these purple plants and tested, and there wasn't any molybdenum. So going back to the whole purple stem, purple leaf, purple bud conversation, purple leaf can be a sign of molybdenum deficiency. So anthocyanin production can be a deficiency response in this case, where it's very clear that you can see like, oh, they just grew. This is when they actually stepped it up to a little bit large. This is like a large pot for them. They do like a menorah kind of style little grows. But yeah, they definitely have a talent for growing in small containers. I'll go back a little bit further down
straight
their
up.
page.
They're not topping it. They're just growing it straight up. It looks like.
Yeah, scroll down a little.
Straight up. Yeah, the older posts are
there you go. Yep.
more their style, I would say. That one long ass stocky plant, that's crazy as hell. That's still in that same tiny ass little solo cup, but it looks like they're actually supporting the roots. But yeah, this page is just so fun to look at because it shows you what is like the end of the spectrum, like the smallest possible pot that you can flower a plant in. And they've been doing it for a long time. These are not fake pictures. I would definitely vouch for the fact that I see this person growing them. Like they've done it many, many, many times. They show off the root balls and everything. So definitely a cool page to check out.
I've oftentimes, if I'm growing a plant from seed and I've got to sex it, I'll take, when it gets big enough, take a cutting off of it, just throw it in a cup of water, put it in the flower room, and wait to sex it. Well, I did that one time and it was a female. So I just took that, it had rooted by that time. So I just took and put it into a solo cup and then kept it in the flower room. And it turned out something like those. not quite that big, not like that, but I mean, it had like 4 or 5 branches, and I had enough to, by the time I trimmed the fucking thing up, I had enough to smoke a joint. So I was able to try that bud smoke it right as I was actually cutting down the big plant that went in. So I was able to kind of get a preview of the bud. It was kind of cool. Not worth all the time, but it was a cool little side project I did.
It's a lot of
Love
effort
doing
for
that.
like 1 gram taster. This is a Canna Bonsai Academy. Similarly, like small plants, intentionally stunted. Don't grow like this if you're looking for production for your medicine. Obviously, like Dr. MJ has mentioned in the past, this is mainly for just likes on Instagram and for the challenge. I think that there is something appealing about being able to make a plant like grow and look like it never would otherwise, and do cool things. There's another guy, Canna Bonsai Manny, is the other one. But yeah, they have some really amazing pages on Instagram out there showing off some of the different, I guess, growing techniques that necessarily I wouldn't implement intentionally, but it's cool to see. This might even be the same person running both of these accounts. Manny is the Canna Bonsai person, but yeah, there's a few different accounts. Like one of them has a crystal ball in there. I'm trying to remember the name of that page, but I'm blanking a little bit. I'd imagine, as most of us our own medicine, that nobody's actually tried any of these techniques. Has anybody, other than like maybe a solo cup grow? Spartan has the cup shot glass growing for sexing the plant and getting a bud out of it, but has anybody else tried anything?
That's like my favorite way to test out a new strain. I had a buddy sent me Jack Herrera, and you know, you never know with Jack Herrera. So I put a solo cup outside the trailer last year, and oh my God, I had 1 bowl's worth, and I was like, yep, that's it. That's it. And it was super nutrient deficient and shit like that. So it's a good way to stress test the genetics as well at the same time. But I love it.
Outside, dude, I've taken fucking branches, you know, when I'm lollipopping, or I've taken fucking literal branches, like I can't fit in the screen, you know, like this big, like, I don't know, 3 foot long, shaved all the fucking branches off it except for the top 3 branches, and just jammed it in the fucking bank of a fucking pond, and that motherfucking rooted and grew into a plant. I didn't even do shit. Fucking this shit is, you know, people think that cloning is so hard and they're so scared to do shit. I'm like, just try, man. Just try. You guys make it so fucking complicated when it can be so easy.
I will say, you know, I've been running clones and those root riot plugs for like more than a decade. And in the last couple of years, they seem like they have started getting really shitty. And I thought I was just getting really bad at cloning, but it turns out that's like a real thing. So I want to give like a recommendation to people. Check out Floraflex clone plugs. They're like a good alternative, and they have biochar in them, Tau. So I know you can release your grip on me about that, because I do like that it has the biochar in it, and it's definitely a great way to start clones. I had impossible freaking strains root, every single one of them rooted, and I'm like, this is okay, this is what it's supposed to be like. I remember this now. So check out Floraflex.
Well, thanks for that tip, dude, because yeah, I just recently saw someone was busting chops on the root riot plugs, or one of the brands, because apparently it came with like some, oh, I think Angel posted on it. It was some sort of fungal growth, I think, but it was like not detrimental. Do you remember that, Sync Angel? I'll see if I can find. It was someone did a post about root riot cubes being contaminated with fungal growth, and I noticed you post.
Oh, I bet it was that yellow. I bet it was that yellow parasol mushroom that everyone gets, or it might have been like an ink cap, like a Crinus or something like that.
But you had pointed out it was not detrimental to the growth, but it still
like a
was
mushroom.
not.
It was like a mushroom, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Was it like black or yellow?
It was orangish, and then it had white, like in some. It was all white underneath where the. I'll see if I can find the post.
Okay.
I don't think I'll be able to, but.
You know, people get. I mean, on that note, I just want to say that, like, if there's like a mushroom growing out of your potting soil or your living soil or whatever you're growing, I think that a lot of the times, especially if it's like a basidiomycete kind of mushroom, like a traditional mushroom, I wouldn't be too worried about it. It might mean that your substrate's a little bit moist, but yeah, I like that you brought that up, Tao.
I hear people say that, oh, now you can assume your soil is fungal dominant when they see a mushroom.
Right.
Like, is that a true sign, or is that just sort of a guesstimate? There's got to be at least some fungal.
We talked about that in that video, in that IGTV, 2 hours, by the way. I'm going to have a lot of time editing that and putting it on the channel. But yeah, I mean, like, I would say no, because, and even if you had like dominance versus diversity is also another question that I think is also maybe hard to answer as well.
Just think presence. I think presence is the correct word there. Fungal.
The only correct, probably the safest word, perhaps. Yeah.
Is there anything that parades like a mushroom that's not a mushroom? Like, I know there's like a lot of flies that pretend to be bees.
Oh yeah. Well, you know, there's actually, have you ever heard of oh, is it called Dead Man's Fingers? Is that what it's called? Hold on, I forget at the moment.
All those little white pipes, ghost pipes, like that.
Ghost pipes, yeah. Aren't those? Those are actually a fungus, I believe.
Yeah, I think those are actually a fungus.
But I'm thinking of those those plants that have no chlorophyll in them and they're parasites.
Not lichen.
No.
That's half and half.
I bet the chat already knows what I'm talking about through the collective intelligence of the internet.
They're saying ghost fingers. That's a guess by Smiley's Garden. I'm not seeing any other guesses yet.
It might be called like. Anywho, I mean there are plants that pretend to be decaying corpses, like the Rafflesia flowers, for example. But for fungi,
is that known as the corpse flower for those out? So yeah, they had one of those in the San Diego Botanical Garden, and my wife and friend and I went there, and it does smell pretty rancid and awful. So if you have the opportunity, I'd say maybe pass on that. It's a giant ass plant, and it's not the prettiest, but it smells fucking gross. Sorry.
No, that's totally fine. So I'm talking about Monotropa uniflora, which is the ghost pipe or Indian pipe, but that is a plant, not a fungus. So, and if you've ever seen pictures of it, it's just like a white plant. But that didn't answer your question. So, no, I guess
to relate it back to IPM, I guess, like, how common is it that bugs are sort of like acting like a different one, or like disguising themselves with some sort of camouflage in that regard?
Oh, all the time. It's kind of amazing to me because, like, just the concept that like something like a Bastian mimicry or like Muellerian mimicry, where like if you're trying to pretend to be something that's dangerous when you're not, that's really interesting to me. And it's interesting because like some camouflage is super, I guess, to our vision, really difficult to see the difference. Like the color, the color and texture is very, very, very close, like with like stick insects and leaf bugs and things like that. But some things like eye spots, that look maybe like an owl face or some other organism, or like jumping spiders that look like ants. Sometimes it's really sophisticated, whereas other times it's like that doesn't really look like a threat. Like I can see the difference, but it's amazing to me that it still works as well as it does, because otherwise it wouldn't have been selected for. So it's just crazy to me that even like a kind of like a I guess you would say, like even like really bad camouflage is still in some instances good enough. You know what I mean?
Better than no camouflage at all, I guess.
I guess so.
And in some cases they use it for like hunting, like you were kind of talking about. It can be used both ways, like that fish that has that little fucking light above its head that attracts the other fishes.
Yeah, that's definitely duplicitous.
Well, it's about that time that we let Spartan Grown take a break to take care of his dogs, refill his tray, and get some water and all that good stuff before Michigan Bros Grow Show. So, Spartan, any final thoughts?
Yeah, just, much love to the chat. Much love to everybody on the panel. I love hanging with you guys. Missed you guys a couple weekends, so I'll try not to do that again. But summertime is hard, man. It's too many events. I like to get out. That's my favorite fucking thing. Is just get out and meet people and talk to people. And this, that charges my batteries for the whole winter and gets me through winter. So I'll put off virtual if I can get in person, but that's the only way. Anyways, I'm Spartan Grown. You can catch me on Instagram or shoot me an email, Gmail. Love you guys. I'm out of here.
Keep growing, man. Keep growing.
Yeah,
Thanks
hell
for
yeah.
coming.
Keep going, guys.
And definitely
Peace
enjoy
out,
those
Spartan.
in-person events because who knows, the shit's getting crazy again. So hopefully things will continue to be, open for you to enjoy those events.
We're
But
crazy. We're crazy in Michigan, man. We got northern Michigan. We can disappear. We'll find a spot.
before that weather hits, at least before the winter cold comes to Michigan. So
But we got ways to the snow too.
crafty guys up there. All right, man. Have a great week.
See you guys.
We'll catch you on the next one, and definitely support Michigan Bros Grow Show. They come on in about 14 minutes, so check them out on Michigan Bros Grow Show YouTube. So we got about 14 minutes left before we give our final shout outs. I guess probably 10 minutes, and we'll do the last 5 minutes as a sign out. Does anybody have final thoughts or comments they wanted to get in before we get into the shout outs?
Yeah, I do. This is sort of superfluous, but anyways, I was on Twitter, and usually important things don't start off with that sentence, but I'm going to say this. I follow this Swift on Security, which is like a cybersecurity, physical security Twitter post, and without being loquacious, I'll just say that they said, if it seems like someone would have to know the right answer to be this wrong, that's because they do. And they posted it anyway, which means you are entering an interaction they engineered for a purpose. You are entering a shooting gallery from the wrong end. And I think that's kind of true for a lot of content creation. Like, we make content here. We have conversations here as a panel with the chat. I have conversations, presentations, interactions. We all do with multiple people in the space. But I don't know, I kind of echo Spartans and a lot of other people's sentiment here. I feel like we're we try to be authentic and sincere about what we're dealing with. Whereas I feel like in other cases, people use techniques and tactics to become more maybe attractive or any number of other things. But I think that they in some way lose a level of sincerity through that process. And I mean, I'm not the sole arbitrator about what that means to anybody, but do you know what I'm kind of saying? Do you kind of get the feeling of what I'm saying?
That
I feel
word is integrity, my friend, and
Yes.
you maintain a
Integrity.
high level.
I just don't like seeing that. It turns me off completely when I see an organization, especially like a smaller one. I feel like, I can kind of agree if it's like a big corporate machine, but then, that's the point of like supporting local and people who and direct, like we were saying with the glass artists, for example.
The worst part is when you see the shift, when it goes from like that small mom and pop to like
Yes.
they're trying to now sell out to be big corporate, or like they've already transitioned. They're like, here's our new mission. We don't give a fuck about the people anymore. We're just trying to make as much money as possible. And we are going to fucking sell every piece of, merchandise, this flyer, that flyer, they're just going to advertise the shit out of things. And like, it's a whole different approach than when it was just like, how do we make the best quality product or service for our local community? And it is definitely interesting to see that because it happens left and right. I support people growing their business. I think a lot of people are doing it incredibly well. Like, there was one CEO who made his minimum wage $70,000 per year, and everybody said, "Oh, he's a communist. He's this and that." And he's like, "I'm going to pay my employees what I think is a fair wage." Because he said he saw some study that said once you make $70K a year, that's like the minimum threshold to like meet basically like I think it's like maximum happiness. Like, past that level, you don't really get much happier, making much more money. So it's like everybody at my company is going to make that level to be, their baseline needs are met, and they also have a little extra to play around with and be comfortable. And
I
Mm.
guess it depends where you live too.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
But I think that even most parts, at least in the U.S., if you budget $70K a year is a livable wage, unless you have like a bunch of kids. And every circumstance, obviously, you can't make too general of a statement. But the moral of the story is his company has been doing incredibly well. And it's like a payments company, I think, but they continue to do very successfully. People were extremely happy with their pay, so they worked harder and the company grew, and they've continued to like hire people and pay them well. So I definitely think that there is the right way to do it and there's the wrong way to do it in life. So often, sometimes you can, not to say that like cheaping out is always the wrong way. Maybe that passes on savings to your customer, your client. Like something like this, a little battery and like a vape pen, it doesn't need to be like $1 million, right? It just needs to work. It doesn't need to cost a bunch of money. But certain things like, they want to build them to last. And like this microphone, for example, I think is built pretty well. And it's lasted me years and continues to do a good job. So there are definitely, just to wrap up my thought on this, there's a right way and wrong way of doing things. And I think we try our best to be on the morally good and just side. We're like here to help people. We're not here to shill products. If we do mention products, it's because we use them and we believe in them. In many cases, in all cases for me, I'm not sponsored by anybody. I have not received a penny for anything. So if you hear me recommend something or not recommend it, it's because I've used it and liked it, or used it and it didn't work for me. And I think that's the same for just about everyone on the whole panel. And I think that is appealing for a lot of the audience for sure.
I think that's a good point, but I kind of liked what Sink Angel said there. I think supporting local and trying to be support small businesses and buying local and stuff. And I'm not even just saying that. I really believe that. And I think that if we had more people try and do that kind of stuff, that it would be a better place. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, like I don't think that there's no inherent good or bad to it, right? Like you could support a local business, but maybe the business does things that are not ethical. Like just because you're small doesn't mean that
True.
you're not, you know what I mean? But at the
Absolutely.
same time, but like I think it does have some tangible effects from an economic perspective, from an ecological perspective. It's not doable for everyone and everything in every context. It's like that saying, there's a simple and easy answer to a complicated question that is wrong, so but yeah, no, I just wanted to echo that sentiment because I do feel like not that I'm like trying to be contrived to be authentic. That itself might not be authentic. You could read about Sartre about that if you want, but I just like the interactions that I have, and I feel like it's very organic, whether it's on my Discord channel, whether it's on my YouTube channel, or here when we're talking in the panel.
I think what you were just describing reminds me of the meme of, I think it's Steve Buscemi, where he's got like a skateboard over his shoulder and he's like, "Hey kids."
Yes.
And it's just like him trying to blend in at a high school when he's like clearly older than everybody.
Hello,
like,
fellow kids.
Yeah.
I support local for selfish reasons because where I'm at, there's not a plethora of grocery stores. So my local grocery store, I try and support at least enough to where it wouldn't go out of business, because sometimes I need something that I could just drive there and get it. Where even if I next day, it seems like a lifetime, So I think there's something to be said about that. And same thing with my pizza joint up the block. If that goes out of business, where would I be? You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Oh, dude, that is such a good point. I'll tell you right now from experience, check this out. When I first started growing 11 years ago, there was maybe 5 grocery stores at least within like a 12-mile radius of me. Dude, as soon as they legalized weed, as soon as they legalized it, they all started going out of business. Boom, 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 boom. Now, luckily, there's one close to me, but literally in my whole city, and my city's pretty big, there's one, and there used to be 5. So that is a good point. A great point.
Yeah.
It's probably owned by Sunlight Supply, aka Monsanto Bayer.
Yes, it is.
It's still right,
There's
but it's still good to have them
too, dude. There's a lot of those grocery stores used to be laundries for grows. They were just washing money, and once you can make your
that's true too.
You no longer have to have that laundry. Hell yeah! So there you go.
100%. I knew a guy that owned a grocery store that used to do that. But I will say this: there was a grocery store over in Portland that it used to be called Island Flowers over in Jansen Beach, and the guy in there was such a good grower, and I would go in there and talk to that guy all the time. And his store charged 20% more than the other store, and I would go in there just to talk to the guy. I learned a lot from him. So you lose that aspect too.
Oh yeah, dude, I learned so much from like the free consulting that I got from the one dude who owned the store. He was real quick. He'd be like, "All right, here's your problem. Here's the solution. In and out." But then his guy underneath him has been a long time grower. He's sort of like, I don't think he made any commission. So he was just there, like whatever hours he was there. I would wait until everybody else got their shit. The store was empty, and then I'd just talk to him for like half an hour to an hour sometimes because I got to try some of his product and I knew his shit was really good. So he showed me his ways and definitely learned a lot just from being able to go in and out of the grocery store. And unfortunately, that one shut down. As much as I tried to support it, it's like my tiny ass little home grow wasn't enough. But they opened up some like different shop now that thankfully he's still doing really well. Like I know the guy who owns the business, and they opened a new business in there that they do like cryotherapy and like the little like LED light therapy and stuff like that. So he's doing very well with that. So they transitioned out and don't have to be owned by Monsanto Bear, which is I think a win. And I'm about to go have a local sub sandwich from Board and Brew here in San Diego, which if you've ever been here, try it out because it's fucking delicious. So with that said,
what's that good hamburger place?
The
one that hasn't changed their prices for like decades.
Oh, Captain Kino's. It's the dive bar, #1 dive bar in San Diego. In the 1970s, this dude bought this place with the money he won playing the game Keno, and he called the restaurant Captain Kino's, and he's kept you get a chicken fried steak with mashed potatoes and gravy for like $3.45, and it's just like a piled high plate, cash only, but it's a cool place. Definitely a little bit different than your typical place, but shout out to Captain Kino's for sure. And
that's awesome.
With that said, we've got about 4 minutes left. Small crew tonight, so we should be able to get through it in time. But before I go and have that sandwich, I'm going to pass it over to Matthew Gates.
Yeah, I really liked the interaction. I'm glad that I was able to have those or bring up those points recently. And I'm just going to keep it short. If you want to find IPM information, and if you have a problem, please contact me on social media. I'd like to help you out. If it helps one person out, then it's worth it to me. And in this world, cannabis growers especially have not been supported. So you can find pest information on my YouTube channel, Zenthanol. You can find it on my Instagram account at SyncAngel. And also you can contact me on Twitter at SyncAngel.
Thank you so much for joining us. I always appreciate your input. And I do think that what you said about cannabis growers not being supported for a long time was true, and it still is in many places to this day. So I appreciate that you are so and have been so helpful to not just me, but many other cannabis growers in the community. That's a valuable thing for so many people, and you've helped save who knows how many plants and gardens at this point. Ups to you and all that you do to support the growers. Next up, we got Aaron the Grower.
Awesome. I'm glad you passed it to me because I wanted to share that sentiment that Matt is just, there's a reason they call you the GOAT of the IPM world. And it is because you're out there just in the field doing it every day. Dude, how I can't even keep up with your stories, man, where everybody that posts to you, you respond and you tell them what kind of bug it is. And that's how I met you. And that's how we started our thing. So I'm really grateful that you pulled me into this group and that I've met all you guys. Tonight was really fun. Thanks for having me. I am Aaron the Grower, ATG Acres on Instagram, YouTube, and .com on the internet. Look forward to next week.
Thanks again for joining us, Aaron. And I'm going to pass it over to Noah the Grower.
Man, I just got to echo what these guys said. Big shout out to Shane for bringing me here, man. I feel very blessed to be around all you guys. I've learned a ton. And the main thing is that I was just kind of getting complacent. I thought I was the greatest grower, and man, you guys have all like just challenged me, just trying to like compete with all you guys are like ninjas, every single one of you guys. And Sync Angel is a total awesome dude, and all you guys are, and I feel privileged to be here. I really do. I'm Noah the Girl on Instagram. If you got any questions, you want to check me out, come find me there.
Hey, the privilege is all ours, Noah. It's a pleasure to have you each week. I appreciate your input, and I oogle over your garden how the American one oogles over Rustin Ranning's gardens because, like I said, I grew up on High Times and looking at HPS growing frosty-ass buds, and you grow some cuts that I've personally consumed and like. So I know someday if I'm ever up in your area, I'd love to link up and try some out for sure. But definitely going to pass it last over to the American one.
Well, don't get it wrong, Jack. I Google and Google over all of you guys grows. ATG Acres, that what he's posting on that light up is just chunkiness beyond chunky. It's really impressive. And yeah, Noah the Grower is an exceptional garden. And yeah, you guys all kill it. So
but thanks, man.
It was just the way that Brandon went big scale. It was like immediately he had healthy plants, full, in a commercial setting. I was just so impressed. That's why. But yeah, you guys all kill it. And yeah, I'm the American one. You guys know where to find me. And if not, someone will help you. So yeah, I was really good this week, and I look forward to next week. Shout out Dr. Coco MJ Wayne here, and Kyle the Breeder, and who else is missing? Well, Rust was here earlier, Brandon. So yeah, it's always good.
Thank you so much for joining us, The American One. It is a pleasure to have you. The American One with a Keens on Instagram. You got to put the underscores after The American One. And The American One on YouTube. You can find me at Jack Greenstock, like it is on my logo here behind me, on Cannabuzz, which I hardly use, and Instagram most often. That's where I'm at. You can also find me at Jack_Greenstock on Twitter. And if you want a copy of my book, 50 Strains of Green, you can go to 50strains.com. 50strains.com, no green at the end, because I'm going to do 50 Strains of Purple at the end of the year. And I'm actually going to start recording the audiobook, hopefully this week. I should have a little bit of free time. And with that, I'll start recording some of the audiobook stuff for the people that asked for it. So thank everybody who showed up in the chat and on the panel for all their support. I appreciate you showing up each week. Much love. Jack Greenstock, signing out. Catch you next week.
Growers love.